Hi everyone, how are you doing? So, for those who are new here, on Tuesdays we stream. Today we're going back to Chess of Blades. We are full on in the Franz route. Things are about to get real exciting. Hopefully, in theory. I promise nothing. Hi Megan. So, I'll wait for a couple of people to join us on our Franzing advent. That's not a word. I just realized that since we're doing this every week, it's like a TV show. It's the classic waiting of having to be patient, and it sucks. I'm sorry. Also, thanks to Mads, who left the nicest "your game volume is too low" comment of all time. So, I turned it up. I hope you appreciate it. Aw, thanks, Betty. All right. Franz and I are alone. Yes, it is. Thank you. Franz and I are alone in the storage room, well, save for the unconscious man snoring in Franz's grip.
Well, let's get back to the hall, shall we? Best get our sleeping beauty here safely locked away before he wakes up, after all.
You're right. Grab his other arm. We'll make quicker progress with the two of us holding him along. Unless you'd rather just walk ahead of me and provide a nice view, of course.
Aw, thanks for the comments on the hair. You see, I did it because you know how Rivian feels about hair, so Rivian could never know. That's, you see? That's the grunt because he knows he could never. I take a hold of the so-called guard's arm, and together with Franz, we drag his body into the hallway. He's heavy enough that I doubt I could lift him myself, but Franz seems completely unstrained. We bring him into the main hall, where Franz finds the nearest actual guard patrolling outside the window, calling him inside and explaining to him what happened. It sounds totally legit. Oh, help Megan out in the chat, guys. The guard, who seems a little shaken and embarrassed, confirms that the man is an imposter. He agrees to take the man to the holding cells and call Linnaeus to question him, apologizing profusely for not recognizing something funny about his false compatriot sooner. It's because they're all in on it. With our murderous cargo safely delivered, Franz and I leave the guard's company and head upstairs, a slightly uncomfortable silence hanging between us as we return to the upper halls. A burning question weighs on my mind while we walk, so I decide to bring it up rather bluntly. Josiah, everything is happening. It's a murder mystery, but also a courtroom romance drama. And by court, I mean like a royal court, not a lawyer court.
I heard that you were showing a lot of interest in Celeste during the celebration. You know her?
Trying to sound as casual as possible, I glance in Franz's direction. He shoots a quick look towards me, his eyes widening briefly in surprise, before his brow furrows slightly.
I know who her father is, and I'm not fond of him. I suspected she'd be involved in whatever unpleasant business was going to happen, but I thought she'd be a participant rather than a target.
Oh, everybody's out for Celeste.
I still don't trust her, but I doubt she'll pose much of a problem. Besides, I think she likes you too much to want you killed.
Wow, calm that jealousy back a bit. Let's dial it down a couple of notches, Franz. Is it my imagination, or does Franz sound a little? He sounded extremely annoyed. Did both of us get the impression that the other had taken a liking to Celeste? Well, no matter. I feel a little relieved knowing the truth, even though I shouldn't care about it one way or another. Arden is best boy, but we are not good enough for him. Somebody played the Arden route because it's taken me that long, and they're like, there's reasons, but I'm like, still though. With Franz still walking at my side, I head in the direction of my room, expecting him to break off at some point to say he's going to his own chambers. But they're next to yours. Why would he break off? You share a room. Rivian. And then I remember our rooms are Rivian. And then I remember our rooms are right next to each other. Ugh, I'm starting to wonder if he didn't plan that all along somehow. We reach our respective doors before long, and I move towards mine, clearing my throat pointedly.
Well, I should thank you again for what you did tonight. I do wish you'd be a little less sneaky about following me, though.
You would have died if he hadn't followed you. He told you to duck, you would be dead. Franz stops next to me, gazing down into my eyes with an intense glimmer in his own emerald orbs.
You'd rather me follow you openly, then? Should I attach myself to you and keep you trapped forever in my arms?
For those who are new here, Franz is thirstier than the chat could ever be. He's just thirst personified.
No, I really wasn't implying...
The larger male suddenly steps in, sounds like a nature documentary. The larger male steps in closer, pulling me into his arms and pressing up against me until our chests are flushed together, because we all know that Franz likes to press. His heavy weight pins me back against the wall and makes it so that I can do little but squirm futilely in his grip, feeling much like a mouse caught in a cat's paws. See the Franz in his native habitat.
This is the third time. I swear, I'm going to report you to the guards for harassment.
No, you're not. Don't lie. I growl in annoyance. That was annoyed? Okay. But the fear and anger that filled me during our first meeting is difficult to muster this time around. One of Franz's arms curls itself around my waist, while his fingers press behind my head and run through my hair, grabbing a rough handful. So is he grabbing roughly, or is your hair rough? Because if your hair is rough, I know how you'll feel about that.
But it's so hard to keep my hands off you, kitten. Your innocence and fire are like a drug I just can't get enough of.
He just describes Rivian as having innocence and fire. I can't. He presses closer, leaning in towards my neck. That's when I realize he was a vampire the whole time. The hand at my hair pulls my head back slightly, exposing my throat, I told you, where Franz presses his lips to my skin hotly, letting out a warm exhale that rolls off my flesh. The sensation causes a sweet shiver to course down my spine, and my breath catches. He traces a warm, wet line of kisses along the curve of my neck, all the way up towards my ear. That's when that person wandering the hallway eating cake earlier comes around the corner. Catching the lobe in his teeth, he nips it softly before dragging his tongue along the tender skin, nuzzling against me.
It wasn't my intention to treat you like this. Not at first.
Yes, it was.
But after we met on the balcony, something about your spite, your stubbornness, sent me tumbling into infatuation.
You know, the best part about this is that they're literally like 2 feet from their rooms.
You just keep refusing to be caught, and I adore it. Each time you slip away will make it so much sweeter when I finally capture you and make you mine.
Is Rivian worth all this? I don't know, you guys. His low purr rumbles promisingly in my ear, and my heart starts to pound harder with each word. He sounds so earnest, so longing. But surely those words are empty. Isn't he just telling me what he thinks I want to hear?
And why exactly do you believe you'll be able to make me yours? I'm not the sort to play around, Franz.
Why are we looking at the moon? What else is happening? My voice comes out soft and slightly uncertain. I can only pray to the gods that no one decides to walk down the hallway at this moment, or is listening from behind their door. I think I'd die of shame. Franz presses his lips almost ravenously to one of my flushed cheeks. I'm just imagining him making out with his cheek, bringing our mouths steadily closer together.
Oh, I don't intend to play around, kitten. I plan on keeping you all to myself. And you're a jealous little thing, aren't you? I'll nurture that until you're as possessive of me as I am of you.
You're both jealous people. How does he know I'm jealous? We all know you're jealous. The chat knows you're jealous. Everybody knows. It's not my fault. I'm unused to being toyed with. He's playing so unfairly.
Sounds like a healthy relationship. Are you going to put a collar on me too?
Well, there it is. The chat didn't even have to do it. They did it for us.
You're already wanting to be my little pet, are you? That can be arranged. I had no idea you're into such naughty things. things.
Rivian, you walked right into that. Before I can so much as mutter out a retort, Franz uses his grip on my hair to abruptly press my head forward, smashing our lips together in a hungry kiss, hard enough almost to hurt, the climax of a passionate buildup that makes me tremble a little in his arms. The resistance leaves me, and I press back against Franz a little bit, parting my lips to let his tongue press into my mouth and dance with my own. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? His heady taste and scent, one of mingled sweetness and spices, floods my senses and makes me feel a little dazed. He presses his thigh in between my legs, entwining us together as he greedily claims my lips with long, wet kisses, hot enough to make my whole body feel practically on fire. A delicious euphoria courses down my spine into my hips. An embarrassingly heated sound leaves my mouth, but was abruptly cut off by the editor, when Franz breaks off the kiss to bury his face against my neck, biting at the soft flesh. I'm telling you, he's a vampire. I know full well that it'll leave a bruise, but I can hardly say that's at the forefront of my mind. He lavishes my jaw, cheeks, and lips with several more kisses, leaving wet marks on my skin, before finally pulling back a little bit, voice still lowered in a silky growl.
I'm taking you tomorrow night to the masquerade ball. You're going to feel like a princess by the time the night's over, and I plan to dance with you more than just in the ballroom.
Rivian already feels like a princess all the time, all day, every day. Franz offers me a warm, predatory smirk, his eyes gazing into mine, as if I'm the only thing of any consequence in his world at this moment.
You're awful. A princess doesn't go rolling around in the sheets with her bodyguard. You'll have to try harder.
Rivian, you clearly don't know a lot of princesses. He chuckles softly, his fingers releasing their grip on my hair and tracing down the back of my neck slowly and longingly. At last, he gradually loosens his embrace and steps back, still watching me with that intense and unwavering look on his face.
Just you wait. I'll have you begging for me at the end of a few dances, kitten. Until then.
Oh my god, well, Christina, he already told the world in the garden, so... Franz reaches out towards the door to his room, casting a lingering glance back towards me.
I'll see you in the morning. Make sure you dream of me, although my balcony door's unlocked. Should you wake up in the middle of the night, wanting the real thing.
How can anyone be this thirsty?
Don't flatter yourself.
I shake my head at him, huffing, before unlocking my own door and quickly pushing inside before he changes his mind and attacks me again. That is not what happened. We all saw. We can all vouch for Franz. Slamming the door shut behind me, I let out a long, heavy exhale, resisting the urge to give in to my still shaky legs, and slump down to the floor. He can't even stand. The kiss was so intense. I need to save. I don't, but I'm going to anyway. I can't believe that just happened. Or more precisely, that I let it happen so easily. There have been only a few people I've felt anything for in the past, but... I closed the menu first. But I didn't think it was possible to get swept up by someone so quickly. And the more I learn about Franz, the more mysterious he becomes. He's an enigma, a mystery wrapped inside a riddle. I still don't know how he's familiar with my father, or why he visited me on the first night and was so intent on protecting me. But I can't deny the warmth I feel from being in his arms, and the rush of excitement that his attentions, however salacious they may be, give me. To think I've gone from a self-respecting young man to gushing like a dazzled maiden in the span of a few days. Rivian thinks he was a self-respecting young man. Let's all let that sink in. Well, all I can say is that I'm quite glad that my parents didn't accompany me to this affair. After I catch my breath and recover my sense of composure, I undress and slip into bed, this time properly diving under the covers. There can't be that many hours left until morning, but I might as well catch a little bit of sleep before tomorrow, and the ball... I'll probably need it, since there's still work to be done. I'm not out of the woods yet, The second murderer is still on the loose. As my eyes close, I feel the lingering warmth from Franz's lips on my skin, shivering slightly and shaking my head to rid it of improper thoughts. Emma, are you spreading the headcanon? It takes a little while of restless tossing and turning, but eventually the haze of slumber settles back over me, and I drift off into unconsciousness.
Chocolate. Don't put that there. It tickles.
No, Rivian, no. A loud knocking on my door suddenly bursts the bubble of my pleasant dreams. Startled awake, I push myself upright, blinking to rid my eyes of haziness. Outside my window, the sky is unusually dark. The soft pattering of droplets against the glass makes me realize it must be storming.
I'm coming. One moment.
I pull on my clothes as fast as I can, missing a few buttons, and rush over to the door to pull it open. Rather than the face of someone I was expecting, like Franz or Silas, the person standing before me is none other than Hazel's mother, the maid, Emily.
Sir Rivian, it's terrible. I did something awful. Please help me.
Rivian can't help. Go knock on any other door. Looking like she's about to break into tears, Emily bites her lower lip and stares up at me pleadingly.
Let's calm down, shall we? Step inside for a moment and tell me what happened.
Oh, so now people can come in the room. I gesture for her to enter my room a bit awkwardly, and she hurries past the door with an anxious nod. Well, what an excellent start to my morning. A hysterical maid begging me for help. Why are you like this, Riv? Why are you so mean? I'm sure this can only portend great things for the rest of the day. Ugh, my day is ruined. After I close the door behind us, I turn back to Emily, frowning at her desperate expression.
Slow down for a moment, Emily, and take a deep breath. Now, what's the matter?
Oh, Emma, you're getting into Rivian's mindset.
It's Lady Valora. She's been apprehended by the guards.
Princess Grunt. I blink and grunt. Surely I must have misheard her. My aunt. Arrested.
Are you sure you're talking about Valora, the King's Foreign Affairs Advisor? Old stuffy lady, gruesome personality?
Yes, I am. I know you're elated, and I was afraid to come to you because I thought you'd be angry, but I don't know who else to ask.
Joey. Oh, her. Her? From how pale and visibly unsettled the woman is, she's clearly done something related to Valora's apprehension. It must be quite bad, too. I'm not sure how else they'd have grounds for detaining a woman of her position.
Well, I'm sure everything was just a big misunderstanding. Why did they arrest her? Glaring too angrily at the Inquisitor?
Emily swallows hard, grasping the hem of her skirt so hard that her knuckles start to turn white.
They found a weapon in her room, a knife covered with dried blood. It matches the wound on the victim from the other night, and so she's being taken in and charged with murder.
But wasn't she not there? That's a pretty good alibi, isn't it? At that, my jaw practically hits the floor. My old batty aunt, a murderer. Impossible. And yet, why on earth was something like that in her room? Detective Riv is on the case. Don't worry, it will not be solved.
But Sir Rivian, I think that knife was there because of me.
Whoa, hold on there. Because of you? I need some more details, Emily.
Lay it out in as many steps as possible for Riv. She brushes her trembling fingers through her hair, inhaling and exhaling a deep breath in the visible attempt to calm herself.
Well, 2 nights ago, I was cleaning the upper halls when suddenly one of the guards approached me. He gave me a small bundle of wrapped cloth and told me it was something Lady Valora had dropped, But as she was down in the ballroom, I ought to leave it in her room when I went to clean it. I thought it was, well, a little strange, but I didn't see any reason not to trust one of the guards. So when I went to Lady Valora's chambers, I tucked the wrapped cloth inside one of her top drawers, since she is a very fastidious lady and does not like anything lying around her room.
Why? Why will alerts not stop happening? Do they not know? It's Riv's time. I can tell from her crestfallen, guilty tone of voice that she's beating herself up inside for being used to frame Valora. It's difficult to really blame her, though. I can guess who the guards she spoke with was. It must have been right after the murder. And now that I think about it, didn't that brawler from earlier say he saw her in the hallway that night?
The thing is, I couldn't shake the horrible feeling that I got from speaking with the guard. The way he gave me the bundle and very slowly, quietly, told me to put it in her room. It was almost like he was threatening me. It made me feel so nervous that my hands were shaking on my way to Lady Valora's chambers. But I thought that if I complained about the guard to someone in charge, I'd be punished or mocked for it, so I said nothing.
She trails off into an almost inaudible murmur, closing her eyes for a long moment, her head drooping slowly towards the ground. The poor woman looks like she's ready for me to start yelling at her at the top of my lungs, as if she's some sort of puppy who just chewed up all of the expensive furniture. Well, I mean, Riv wants to yell at people all the time. Of course, Valora's life is a bit more important than furniture, but only just a bit, just a smidge. Only slightly, though. Why am I always on the same wavelength with Riv? What does that say about me?
Well, this is a proper mess, isn't it? Did you explain all of that to the Inquisitor, though? I'm sure he's reasonable enough to see it was a setup.
Just when I thought Emily was already white as a ghost, she seems to somehow grow a shade paler.
The thing is, sir, that wasn't all they found. There was something else. A blood-stained cloth, hidden in her personal chest, which only she has the key to. I didn't put it there, and only Silas and I hold the master keys for the guest chambers, but I know it wasn't Silas. I'd sooner trust him before myself, and so Lady Valora must have known about the cloth.
It was Silas. Don't trust Silas, the butler did it. That was an extra grunt. Confusion clouds my mind as I parse Emily's concerned words. I still don't see how Valora could possibly be a killer, of anything except hopes and dreams, that is. So why did she have something so incriminating? My aunt's a smart woman. Whatever she was doing with that cloth, I'm sure she knew the risks of keeping it in her room.
I'm starting to think this was a very well-planned setup. The key is just to find who's moving all the pieces into place.
Chess reference. Quick, get Franz, he'll help. I don't mention it aloud to Emily, but it sounds very plausible that those disciples of Ignatius are behind this too. I know, right? To both kill an ambassador and worsen relations even further by framing a foreign advisor for it. It's a perfect plan to force two countries into war.
I think you're right, sir. I want to see Lady Valora freed and apologize for everything. I don't know what I should do, and I fear if I involve myself too much, my little Hazel may be in danger.
The maid gazes at me pleadingly, as if expecting me to solve everything and save the day right then and there. She's come to the wrong room.
You've been quite helpful, Emily. Don't be too hard on yourself. I'll find a way to figure this out. Somehow.
No, we won't.
I believe in you, sir.
No.
The king always put such faith in your father to solve every problem that came up, and I'm sure you'll become even more famous than he was.
No. No, faith in the wrong place. I wince a little as my father is brought up, like always. Still, Emily means well, so it's difficult to get too annoyed at her. That, and I'm pretty sure she'd burst into tears if I so much as gave her an angry look right now.
Yes. Well, that aside, I'll reach out to you should I have any questions. In the meantime, don't go taking any more parcels from strangers, eh?
As you say, sir. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you.
I need it. Thank you. She gives me a grateful curtsy and hurries back to the door, quietly slipping out into the hall. I'm left with a renewed, uncomfortable sense of responsibility, and I sigh quietly while rubbing the bridge of my nose. It's one thing to look out for myself, but now I have to try and get Valora off the hook too? As much as I try to put on a brave face for Emily, I feel like this is quickly measuring up to an impossible task. As if to echo my sentiments, distant thunder rumbles lowly, like the growl of some unseen danger. My stomach growls too, reminding me that I haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon. There was so much going on that I didn't even think about it. Well, I could always stand to lose a few pounds, probably. After staring contemplatively out my window for a few minutes, I head into the hallway, slowly closing the door behind me. Today's the last day of the celebration, so it's the only chance I have to catch the murderer and clear my aunt's name. I'll try to investigate some more, because I've done so much already, and find something that'll give me a hint as to who framed Valora and how. And then tomorrow, I'll finally be able to flee this hellhole and head back home to where I belong. I'm going to seriously think twice before ever leaving the house again. I make my way from the guest rooms to the upper level of the main hall, hearing the chattering of voices grow steadily louder. It's a welcome change from the eerie silence of last night, so despite my dislike of crowds, I find myself actually a little relieved. When I reach the main hall, I can quickly see that a number of the guests are gathered here to talk and be served elegant finger foods, courtesy of the numerous servants drifting around with trays. I quickly go and steal a tray. The rain outside is pouring down, and doesn't seem to be letting up anytime soon, so the castle will probably be packed most of the day. I grab a cup of tea and some strange but delicious sweet cake that I've never seen before, and tuck into it while walking around the upper balcony. I'm hoping for a glimpse of Silas, Alistair, or that brawler man, Sir Watermelon Arms, since they might be able to give me a few more clues. This cake is really good. Rivs on the case. As I chew the sweet sponginess with relish, my eyes suddenly catch a familiar black ponytail standing not far off. A ponytail attached to its owner, of course, whose tall, slim figure and bespectacled face I recognize clearly. Swallowing the rest of my cake, I hurry over to the table Linnaeus is furtively lurking around. When I get closer, I resist the temptation to tug at his temptingly fluffy tied back hair, and instead just clear my throat loudly. Look, we're on the Franz route. We made our decision. You don't get to tease us like that.
Linnaeus! Just the man I wanted to see.
Why does everybody gasp so much in this game? Everything's so shocking. He jumps a little, whirling around to face me with a startled, hand-caught in the cookie jar sort of expression.
What are you doing so shadily over here? Wait a moment, is that wine? It's not even noon yet.
Oh no, they were soulmates the entire time. Wine mates.
Well, excuse me, Mr. High and Mighty. If you had to detain your own kinswoman and lasted advisor, you'd be drinking your pain away too.
In his hand, Linnaeus holds a half-empty glass of wine, and it looked like he was about to reach for the bottle when I snuck up on him.
Besides, I'm just getting a brief break from trying to solve this ridiculous affair. I'm not looking forward to questioning your old witch of an aunt, let me tell you.
Ah, at least we agree she's an awful old lady then. But I assure you, Linnaeus, there's no way she could be a murderer. You must know that.
And I have all the proof, except I don't. He lets out a heavy sigh, taking a long drink of the ruby liquid in his cup before pushing up his glasses and turning his gaze reluctantly towards me.
I can't deny the facts, Vanison. The cloth hidden in her room, along with the maid's testimony of being threatened by a suspicious guard, right after you encountered that guard last night, is about as incriminating as you can get.
Is it though? Is it?
Do I actually believe she did it? No. But the politics of the matter demand that someone is punished for this crime, or else our relations with Proivia will grow even worse.
But no, look, if If Riv marries Franz, we can solve all relation problems right now. Riv's on that case. He sounds unusually grim for once, and I can tell that he's not happy with the position he's in. As much as I'd like to be angry with him, it's hard to hate the man just for doing his job.
The real culprit is still out there, you know. I'll be damned if I don't get to him before this celebration is over. And when I do, you're writing my aunt an apology letter.
Oh, Artemis, hi! Well, Riv and Franz made out in the hallway, and there was a sentence about him passionately attacking his cheek. An amused, curious smirk crosses Linnaeus' sharp features, his eyes glimmering at me with interest behind his glasses. No. It's not your time, Linnaeus.
Am I now? Well, best of luck to you.
It's not your timeline.
I've already questioned everyone involved, but perhaps you want to start with your attacker from last night, who firmly testifies that your aunt collaborated with him to murder the ambassador. Or maybe you could ask Valora's own ward, that boy, Alistair.
Nobody tells Riv anything. My eyes widen at Linnaeus' added description of the boy. Alistair, my aunt's ward? Well, it is true she's currently childless. Her only daughter ran away from home. And come to think of it, Alistair said something about his guardian being in a bad mood the other day, didn't he? Perhaps she took him in off the streets, and that's why he's so jittery and anxious all the time. Poor fellow. If I had to spend every waking hour with Valora, I'd probably be at my wit's end too.
I see. Well, I suppose I'll start sniffing out some clues then. By the way, Linnaeus, why were you giving me that odd look the other night? Back when I was being detained in your office.
The Inquisitor only shrugs at that, topping off his glass of wine before turning slightly away. He says, I thought you were picking my route, but then you didn't, so whatever. To the dungeon.
Why indeed? I knew you had neither the guts nor the spine to kill a man. But if you were in the gardens during the murder, you were almost certainly seen by the true culprit. I figured I could keep your impulsive self safe for the rest of the party, locked in a guarded room. But clearly, you prefer to rely on that bastard Chaumont instead. A questionable decision.
I knew it. Jealous, that was our moment. If we had toasted to success, we would be on this route right now. Linnaeus shakes his head disapprovingly, gaze darkening with mistrust.
Luckily for him, everyone seems to have forgotten about the nasty political affairs he was rumored to be caught up in a few years ago. Oh well, it's your reputation, Varison, and your life.
That was like the court time equivalent of a subtweet. Like, oh, I guess you don't care about all his drama, but whatever. With that markedly cool, flippant statement, he pushes up his glasses and turns away, striding briskly towards the stairs. Even though my first instinct is to brush them off as petty dislike, Linnaeus' words remain ringing distantly in my ears. I've yet to hear a positive thing about Franz from anyone. It's difficult to ignore all this suspicion when it keeps piling up. Did he take the wine with him? That's the detail I need to know. I eye the wine table for a longing moment. No, Rivian, getting completely sozzled is not going to help your investigation. Nothing will help our investigation. Taking a deep breath to stiffen my self-control, I turn away and force myself down to the lower level. More importantly, I need to see about meeting with Alistair or the blasted guard. Although, there is something I hadn't even considered before. What if by some chance there's still a clue around the place of the crime? Riv just thought about that. That's why he's their crack detective on the case. Assuming that's the gardens where the ambassador was found, surely there wouldn't be anyone wanting to snoop outside in the rain either. It's a bit of a long shot, but this seems like one of the few opportunities I have to try it. I casually make my way over towards the garden exit, trying not to look particularly out of place. It seems a lot of ladies brought their parasols down, expecting to go outside today, but thanks to the rain, a number of them are neatly arranged in a rack not far from the garden door. I can choose which one to steal. I make sure no one's directly observing me, then make a subtle reach for one of the parasols. They're not exactly the most weatherproof things, but it's better than just getting outright soaked. Luckily, the guards who normally would have been standing by the door is standing a fair distance away, thoroughly distracted in conversation with some blushing young man. Gods, no wonder Arden managed a position in this joke of a place. Just Arden hate. Arden's not even here. I quietly slip out into the gardens, hastily raising the parasol, soon after to keep the rain from immediately assaulting me. Heavy droplets soon saturate my makeshift shield as I walk the same path I did a few nights ago, this time taking care to avoid standing in front of any windows for too long. Recalling what Celeste told me last night, I attempt to envision where the ambassador must have walked to. She said he'd gone further down the path from where I was standing. So if I keep heading this way then... When I round a corner of the garden, my eyes catch something a little unusual. One of the bushes is oddly squished, as if someone fell onto it. And the surrounding grass is a bit patchy, like some of it was kicked up or scuffled against. Considering how meticulously well kept the rest of the garden is, I think this could be the place the ambassador fought with his murderers. I lower myself down to a crouch, patting the grass and squinting to see if anything else looks unusual or out of place. The parasol is starting to drip a bit, and I'm going to feel very silly if I get caught out here with nothing to show for myself. Princess grunt.
Oh, what's this?
When I reach inside the bush's crushed leaves, my hand suddenly brushes something that feels metallic. I take a hold of it and pull it out carefully, revealing it in my palm. A bracelet. A pretty silver one too, with fine enough filigree to make any girl jealous. I put it on. Could it be that a woman really did commit this crime? The ambassador was certainly a male, and if the fake guard was the other half of the conspiracy, that only leaves one individual left. I don't see how it could be a girl I know. Celeste? Emily? Valora? Hazel? That's right, Hazel did it. Ugh. Although, come to think of it, this bracelet looks awfully familiar. Haven't I seen Valora wearing this? There we go. Artemis, you got your gasp. A sudden rustling noise makes me jerk upright. My heart skips a beat, and I slowly step backwards, lowering myself a little. I thought no one would come out here in this weather. I hold my breath, not daring to move an inch, praying for whoever's there to go away. Ellipses.
Kitten, is that you?
A wary voice calls out to me. Moments later, a tall, tanned figure steps out of the bushes and approaches me, shaking his head.
Franz! You just about gave me the scare of my life.
And I just about knocked over my coffee. Thanks a lot, Ruth.
Do you care to explain why on earth you're skulking around in the rain, holding a lady's parasol and a bracelet?
Isn't it obvious? I'm investigating. I'm a detective.
You don't cross-dress on the sly, do you? Come to think of it, I'd love to see you in a skirt, if I'm being honest.
Someone is dead. 2 countries could go to war. I barely managed to resist the urge to crack my soaked parasol, it's not yours, over Franz's head, and instead just glare at his delighted smirk.
Ignoring your bizarre conclusions, I was looking for any clues that could help out our search.
Oh. Well, I appreciate that. Franz's eyes light up at that, and he saunters closer, his large boots sinking slightly into the soaked earth with each heavy step. I'm stammering, I can't handle all the Franz.
It seems my clever little kitten got a step ahead of me. I was planning on coming out here earlier before I heard about that unpleasant business with your aunt. You did get the news, didn't you?
When I nod grimly, Franz rubs at the back of his neck with a hand, shaking his head sympathetically. Oh, Luna, you just missed the fact that Franz wants to see Riv in a skirt. The raindrops have matted his dark hair to his forehead, and the water streams down his tanned features in a way that serves to make him look even more exotic. Okay, Franz looks like a lot of things, but exotic is not traditionally what I would call one of them, but alright.
I found this bracelet actually, and it reminds me of one Valora wears. Which is, you know, not very helpful with the whole proving her innocent business.
I show Franz the bracelet, and he frowns thoughtfully, rubbing a hand against his cheek.
Not a very encouraging sign. I doubt they'll let you ask her about it, considering she's locked up for questioning. But there might be someone else who could tell you if it's the same one. It doesn't look like there could be many other clues here, though. And the rain has probably ruined any residual evidence that might have been left behind.
Why has nobody looked? How did Riv get out here before Franz? I can't help but study Franz as he leans down by the bush, scanning keenly through the grass. He carries himself with a practiced calmness, like he's done this sort of thing a number of times before.
Have you investigated a lot of crimes in the past? It seems like a strange activity for a member of a royal family to be involved in.
Franz pauses, shooting me a look of shock. Shock that Riv could learn anything or figure anything out, which honestly is justified. Oh, that's right. I didn't mention I knew he was Peruvian royalty. You see, you could have kept that to your chest. It was your ace in the hole.
Ah, Silas mentioned your bloodline the other day. I wasn't sure why you kept it so hush-hush.
He gradually pushes himself up to his feet, pursing his lips for a moment. Franz really doesn't like talking about this, does he?
Well, I'm not exactly proud of it. Nor am I very welcome in Peruvia any longer. Although I have no desire to go back.
His grim tone catches me off guard. He seems unusually vulnerable right now, and I wonder if this might be my opportunity to learn more about him. I will exploit all his vulnerability. See, the choices in this game come out of nowhere, and then I have to think about them. Try to cheer him up. Try to learn more. Is this where I pretend that Riv is anything other than what he is? I can't save anymore, Joey. I had my chance. I had my chance. I know, right, Luna? I want to know. I'm sorry. I want to know. I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. Deciding to try and get some more details about his past, I clear my throat pointedly and blunder on through.
You've not been very forthcoming about anything to do with your past. Couldn't you spare a few details to assuage my curiosity?
Wow, that's actually not the most awkward that Riv has been. His brow furrows, and the expression in his eyes is a little detached, aloof almost, as he watches me silently. I'm not used to seeing such a calculating look on his face, and it makes me grow uncomfortably tense. After a moment, however, Franz exhales a soft sigh, shaking his head a little.
Since you've already learned about my family, I suppose I could tell you that, well, I knew the Peruvian ambassador. He was an awful man.
His voice darkens a little once more, and he runs his fingers through his rain-slicked hair.
He was awful? Surely you were a little glad when you discovered he was snuffed out then.
Wow, Riv. Did you do it?
He deserved it, certainly. What frightens me more, though, is that I'm starting to think the disciples didn't murder him just because of his status. Which means they may have another target as well.
My confusion deepens as Franz glances off into the distance, seemingly musing to himself more than anything. I've guessed for a while that he knows more about this case than he's letting on, but there must be a reason why he's avoiding divulging it all to me.
Ignore my ramblings. I'm just getting paranoid from being wrapped up in this mess.
His demeanor quickly lightening again, Franz ducks under my parasol, which is barely big enough for me, let alone both of us, and curls an arm around my waist, trying to distract himself with sex, but I won't let him because for once I'm going to be useful.
Let's go back inside, shall we? Unless you want to try kissing in the rain.
Yes, let's go inside, that is. Not kiss. Stop making that face at me.
Franz chuckles at my flushed cheeks as we head back towards the castle. Internally apologizing to the poor lady whose parasol I borrowed, I leave the unfortunate accessory outside. I don't even bring it in to dry. I'm a monster. After peering through the door's windows to... I'm flustered. The parasol. To ensure the nearest guard's back is turned to us, Franz motions for me to follow him into the main hall, and we sneak in without drawing too much attention. While I'm fairly dry, Franz is dripping somewhat ludicrously all over the polished floors, and I give him a disapproving sigh.
You're making the servants' lives hell, you know. You should really go dry. Oh, hello, Hazel.
Rather unexpectedly, I notice a set of bright pink pigtails bouncing towards us and turn to face the source. Hazel comes to a stop before us, an alarmed frown on her face.
So, Rivian, you're all wet. And you... Who are you?
Don't scare the children, Franz. Franz stares at Hazel, and Hazel stares at Franz. He doesn't really seem to know what to do. Has he never seen a little girl before?
I am called Franz, miss. How do you do?
Somewhat awkwardly crouching down, Franz extends one of his large hands to Hazel. His movements are tentative, like someone trying to entreat a stray cat.
Oh, I'm Hazel. How'd you do?
She firmly grasps his hand with both of her tiny own and pumps it up and down in an energetic shake.
Don't break my arm off now.
It's hard for me to believe my own eyes, but Franz actually appears a bit flustered, or at least somewhat unsure of himself. He didn't act this way around Celeste. She's not a child. Is it possible that he isn't used to being around children? Celeste isn't a child.
Are you Sir Rivian's friend? If you're not, you should be. He's a very nice man. He gave me a pastry and everything. Sir Franz, do you need a towel? I don't think Silas would be happy if he saw you getting the floor all soaked.
Hazel points to where a puddle of water is forming around Franz's boots, pursing her lips together.
You're right. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, then please.
I won't be long. Don't you dare move, though.
If you make more puddles, I'm the second murderer. After sternly eyeing Franz, Hazel turns and rushes off towards one of the side corridors, the pattering of her footsteps lightly echoing in the main hall. It isn't long before her little shape disappears, and I turn to Franz with a laugh spilling out before I can stop myself.
So the smooth-talking rogue gets tongue-tied around children, is it? Who knew?
Franz shoots me a light glare, still visibly embarrassed. A gleeful sense of having finally gained the upper hand for once brightens my mood considerably.
Is it because you feel guilty about using your normal crafty tricks on them? Or perhaps you've forgotten what innocence is like?
Why do you have this straight to the heart?
That's enough out of you.
Sounding more sheepish than angry, he pinches my cheek playfully. Perhaps I was close to the mark, though. I've never seen him acting quite so unsure of himself before, in the 3 days I've known him. I decide not to push the subject further, but a smirk still creeps over my lips when Hazel runs back a minute later, clutching a towel almost as big as she is.
I'm back. Oh, you've really gone and messed up the floors now, sir.
She's right, the growing puddle is hard to miss.
Well, Franz, you're just a downright embarrassment, aren't you? Go on, get toweled off like the wet dog you are.
You know, like, Riv just takes things up to the next level.
You two are really intent on bringing me down today.
Letting out a sigh, Franz lowers his head a bit, bowing before Hazel like she's some sort of princess. Hazel clutches onto her towel with determination, then reaches out to start drying off Franz's soaked hair, standing on her tiptoes so she can reach. The scene really does resemble a girl drying off some large hound. No, perhaps a wolf. The chat was right, wolf, who's just come in from the rain. It's a surprisingly touching moment. I didn't think Franz, of all people, would ever put himself in such a vulnerable position before others. And I suppose there's something rather endearing about how awkwardly he stands there, subjecting his hair to the enthusiastic ruffling from Hazel's towel. Finally, after Franz starts to look substantially drier, Hazel takes a step back to survey her work with a satisfied nod.
There, now you won't ruin the carpet.
Franz lets out a slightly embarrassed cough, smoothing back his ridiculously ruffled hair with one hand and scratching the side of his neck.
Thank you, Miss Hazel. You've saved both the carpet and me, it seems.
Hazel beams in response and tucks the towel back under her arm, seemingly rather proud of herself.
Well, I need to be getting back now, but you two take care of each other, okay?
Why did he grunt at that? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't startled when Hazel addresses Franz and me firmly.
You're both my friends now. So, Sir Franz, make sure Sir Rivian doesn't get into any trouble.
You see, she knows what's up. She knows who really needs protecting.
That's rich coming from you.
Josiah, all of you, you're thirsty tonight. Even as I muttered doubtfully under my breath, Franz let out a soft chuckle all of a sudden, dipping his head in a nod.
Of course. I'll make sure to keep him safe. Don't you worry.
The unexpected gentleness in his tone leaves me momentarily speechless. Who are you, and what have you done with Franz?
Good. I'll see you later then. Don't go back into the rain.
With a playful chiding waggle of her finger at us, Hazel turns to go hurry off again. She runs so much. I don't think I've ever seen her walk anywhere before. I exhale a gentle sigh, feeling slightly warmed inside, despite the lack of progress we've made today in our investigation. If only I could be as chipper and energetic as Hazel about everything. Life would surely seem a lot easier.
Well, as thorough as you was, you still seem a bit damp. You'd better go change clothes before you catch a chill. I don't want you sneezing all over me tonight.
Yes, dear, just as you say.
Franz offers a sly wink at me, then slips off towards a side staircase, presumably aware of an alternate path to get to his room without climbing the very visible main stairs. I watch him disappear in the distance, with a fond smile growing on my lips before I even realize it. Shaking my head, I smooth back my slightly wet bangs, while contemplating what to do with the bracelet that's still in my hand, glistening slightly with moisture.
Sir, you're getting the floor rather wet. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to... Riv?
Arden, it's been forever. Gasping at the sudden voice of the guard nearby, I quickly swivel towards him, only to see Arden approaching, blinking at me in surprise.
You weren't here a little while ago. Did they put you on emergency duty or something?
I'm only briefly filling in for a friend of mine. Some horrible events happened last night, you see, so I volunteered to keep an eye on things.
He quirks an eyebrow at me curiously, his eyes flickering over the dampened parts of my person.
Were you out in the rain? A bit of a strange pastime. I could have brought you an umbrella if you'd asked.
Arden would bring him anything if he asked. I let out a nervous chuckle and fiddle with the bracelet in my hands, shrugging in reply.
Just exploring a little. I'm a big fan of rainstorms and all that, you know.
What's that you have? It looks like the same bracelet Lady Valora wears. Awfully sorry about what happened to her, by the way.
Hold on a moment. She's wearing it now? You mean this is a duplicate?
When I cut him off, Arden tilts his head at me in surprise, before nodding a little in confusion.
Yes, I helped escort her to the holding cells. It fell off her wrist, so I picked it back up and gave it to her. I commented how pretty it was, and she told me how she'd gotten 2 of them made. One for herself and one for her daughter.
Dun dun dun!
It seems her daughter's estranged now, unfortunately, but she implied she'd given the second bracelet to someone else. I didn't get a chance to ask more before she went back to yelling about how unfair her detainment was, you see.
This new piece of information clicks strangely in the back of my mind. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but there's a very uncomfortable possibility I sense opening up.
Very interesting. Well, thank you, Arden. Always useful when I least expect you to be.
That hurt. I feel hurt for Arden.
Thank you, I think.
I clap him distractedly on the shoulder, offering an encouraging nod before turning to head off towards the stairs.
Wait, Riv! The masquerade's tonight, you know. I don't suppose you'd be interested in joining me?
Stop. Arden, stop. You're making me sad. His hopeful voice calls out to me from behind, but I can't bring myself to look back at him. Doesn't even give him a look back. He didn't even get a look back.
I already have a date. Sorry.
He wasn't even worth a look back. A sense of deja vu flits over me as I offer a distracted reply, but my thoughts are too preoccupied for it to stay on my mind very long. When I retreat to the upper floor's hallway, I head to Linnaeus' room to try and ask him some questions. His response, however, is so brusque and annoyed that I'm sent away before very long, without much of any new information. I try Valora's chambers next, where one of the guards very reluctantly lets me inside. After snooping around for what feels like exhaustive hours, though, I don't turn up any new clues. It probably doesn't help that the guards searched it and left it a mess, of course, but it also seems like it wiped off any evidence, save for the conspicuously incriminating bloody cloth, of course. Then when I attempt to find Alistair's chambers, I've met with no success, and my request to a guard for a visit with last night's attacker is met with blatant refusal. Exhausted and frustrated, I eventually head back to my own chambers, flagging down a servant on the way, and requesting a light meal be brought to my room. I sit by the fireplace while mulling over my food, wondering if there's anyone left to ask, any hints left to uncover. But it's quite clear that Valora was expertly framed, and the conspirator didn't leave enough behind for me to clear her name. Someone else maybe, but not me. I'm starting to think that there's only one person who could be the culprit, but at the same time, it seems so infeasible that I'm doubting myself. I feel like the only thing left to do is wait, since if the murderer plans to strike again, it'll surely be tonight. Tonight? I know, Artemis. The masquerade. I should probably start getting ready soon, shouldn't I? That's what's important. Get your hair done.
Dancing.
I theatrically groan to myself, but I can't help but feel a bit excited, if nervous. Look at me, getting flustered about dancing. I thought this day would never come. I reluctantly push myself off of my chair and set about readying myself, taking out the mask I bought the other day and admiring it. I wonder what kind of mask Franz will be wearing. I wonder what else he'll be wearing. Will we mask? Will we match? Will we mask? We will mask because it's a masquerade ball. To my surprise, the remaining time until evening flies by as I practice my waltz steps and try to recall my various training, stumbling over my own feet half of the time. It isn't until I put on the mask and head to my bedroom door that my pulse suddenly starts to quicken, and I attempt to swallow my nervousness. Franz is already down there, I presume. Should I wait for him to come escort me? Should I just go myself? Ugh, what a ridiculousness this all is.
I'm not some girl who needs to be escorted. I'm perfectly capable of doing things myself.
But he said he'd make you feel like a princess. I mutter under my breath as I head out into the corridor. Also, he's just bitter that Franz is not escorting him, hurrying towards the main hall. The sound of the crowd is even louder than it normally is, suggesting the masquerade's close to beginning. I let out a long exhale to try and calm my nerves, slowly descending the grand staircase so that I don't trip and end up a splatter at the bottom, unlike the narrator who is tripping over all her words. Riv would have some words for her if he could hear it. My heart beats as if it's trying to win a hotly contested race, to the point where I almost feel a little lightheaded. Whether it's from the idea of dancing, or the idea of dancing with Franz, while Arden cries in the corner, that I don't know, and I'm not sure if I want to. I step through the ballroom doors and onto the floor, biting my lip and adjusting my mask anxiously. The swell of music greets me, as does a smattering of colorful dresses, suits, and masks of all shapes and designs, each one exquisite in a macabre or mysterious way. Just think. In this sea of masks, the murderer could be dancing without fear, waiting for another chance to strike. Everyone looks so different in their exotic costumes, and I can't recognize a single familiar figure in the crowd. But rather than anxiety, the feeling that wells up inside me is something dangerous, exciting, thrilling. This is the true chessboard of the court, and we are all its faceless pieces. Can a piece become a player? Do we dance of our own accord, or because of someone's whims? I think at last I understand why my father sent me here, to dance, and what he wanted me to witness firsthand. This is a trial by fire, but I'll be damned if I won't hold my own against these pawns, and carry on the fear of the Varison name. Okay, Riv.
My, how ravishing. A little prince all lost and alone. Might I ask your hand in a dance?
See, Franz has no trouble identifying everyone, even with a mask on. A low, sensual purr rumbles in my ear from behind. I slowly turn to see Franz standing before me, half of his face hidden by a rustic, roguish mask that leaves his eyes accented like two mischievous emeralds.
I'm sorry. My parents told me not to talk to strangers. Even the especially dashing ones.
No, don't flirt like that. A slow grin spreads over Franz's face, his gaze focusing on me with enough intensity to be embarrassing, and he slips one arm around my waist. Together, we step out into the whirling carousel of guests, and I feel a rush of excitement that I never thought I could get from the thought of a dance. Franz takes my hand in his own and places his other upon my waist, apparently unable to keep himself from giving a playful squeeze. I rest my own free hand atop his shoulder before hesitating, offering up a silent prayer that he's experienced enough in this for the both of us. In all things, hint, hint. Perhaps he recognizes my nervousness, since the wolfish smirk on his lips widens, and his eyes shine with the powerful confidence of someone truly in his element.
Just relax. Imagine it's only the two of us, all alone beneath the moonlight, dancing for an audience of stars.
He leans in to murmur this against my ear, and my eyes slowly drift closed for a moment. Then, as I reopen them to glance at Franz, he starts to guide me in a steady waltz, his movements dominant, but not overpowering. The dancing lessons I'd taken at home but tried to forget now resurface in my mind. My steps start to come naturally, and I fall into a rhythm with Franz, barely having to think about anything other than not flushing under his infatuated gaze. I look up into his heavily lidded emerald eyes, wondering what numerous secrets are hiding behind their surface. There's so much he hasn't told me, and suddenly I find myself wanting to know it all. Despite all his ridiculous body flirting and the casual flippancy of his attitude, there's a true passion behind that facade. And I find myself growing addicted to the longing, hungry way he refuses to tear his gaze away from me.
Oh,
Oh, what an adorable couple they make. I wish I could find someone to dance with me like that.
I love all the extra voices.
The joy of young love. Oh, to be that age again.
The music shifts from a waltz to a faster, livelier piece, but rather than being caught off guard, I find myself naturally able to quicken my steps. Our movements quicken as we settle into a perfect harmony, and Franz sometimes twirls or lifts me in a sudden, daring way, like he's trying to see if I can match his unpredictability. But when I stop trying to focus too much, and instead just let the rhythm and my competitive instinct take the reins, I easily spin with his twirls, and find the pace of my steps each time he sets me down after a lift. The tempestuous music begins to feel more and more like a breathless, erotic dance, and I occasionally hear a few giggles or thrilled coos from a few observers every time we add an extra move into our quick steps. In the midst of my dizzy thoughts, I can't help but notice how unusual it is for us to spend so much time together without exchanging a word. And yet, it doesn't feel strange in the slightest. The romantic in me wants to say that our dancing speaks volumes, like increasingly impassioned love letters being written with each step. The cynic in me, of course, wants to point out that I probably couldn't say a word even if I wanted to, considering how breathless I am from all this exercise. After what feels like hours that pass by in the blink of an eye, Franz pauses at the end of a particularly long and evocative waltz. His broad chest rises and falls with quiet, heated breaths as he keeps a firm grip on my hand, pulling me away from the center of the ballroom. Trying to catch my own breath, I pant softly as I follow him into a little corridor connected to the ballroom side, my legs feeling a bit wobbly beneath me.
Franz, where are we going?
My breathless question isn't met with no answer. Grammatical error. Instead, Franz heads for a small door in the hallway, tonguing it open and pushing me inside with obvious impatience. What I stumble into is a little storage alcove, illuminated only by the moonlight streaming in through a single window. The dim light, however, is more than enough to see the dangerously intense glimmer in Franz's eye as he closes the door behind us, flicking the lock. He slowly approaches me with predatory steps, and I instinctively press back against the wall. Then he rips off my mask with one hand, throwing it to the floor. After he does the same to his own, the burning desire in his features becomes all too apparent.
Rivian, I can't take it anymore.
Neither can the chat. Before I can even think of a reply, Franz suddenly grabs me, pulling me into a kiss so powerful it feels like I'm being devoured by a wolf. He greedily caresses my lower lip with his teeth, nipping and tugging at it so heatedly that I feel the warmth of a little blood beating from where he bites. His hot tongue, however, quickly licks it off before pressing forward to invade past my lips. Clashing with my own tongue to messily tangle together, impatiently exploring my mouth and filling it with his exotic, sweet taste. In this dance, I can barely keep up, as the flood of his demanding affections makes it feel like I'm being swept away. We entwine in a whirlwind of passion as the night goes on, inseparably locked in each other's arms. In the R18 version, which patch and version I do have, there's some definite head and like on kneeling and stuff that happens. Just FYI for those who want to partake in the R18 version, but I don't want to be demonetized, so I'm not doing that this time. But just know it exists, and Rivian indeed kneels. At last, I close my eyes and let myself be absorbed in the gentle sound of Franz's breathing, savoring every moment. My mind starts to sink into unconsciousness, even as I try weakly to fight it. But in Franz's arms, I don't fear any danger, and he's so very warm. Finally, I succumb to the pull of sleep and fall into a shallow doze, with my head buried against Franz's shoulder. When I open my eyes again, I realize I'm lying on my own bed, half dressed, with only my trousers pulled on. But did he leave a note? The balcony door is open, and I see Franz standing outside gazing up at the night sky searchingly. He didn't have to, because he's still there. When he hears my soft groan, however, he turns towards me, a soft smile on his lips. He steps back inside, closing the door, approaching the bedside to lean down and place a warm kiss on my forehead.
Go back to sleep if you wish. I'll be back in a moment.
You're leaving?
Still half awake, I mumble a confused response, only for Franz to laugh quietly and shake his head.
Don't worry. I'll return to your side before you know I'm gone.
He runs his fingers through my hair affectionately, before pulling back with a longing sigh. Then he makes his way over to the bedroom door, slipping out with quiet but determined footsteps. He could have just taken the balcony, but whatever. For a moment, the siren call of sleep beckons to me again, and I almost slip off once more. But for some reason, an uncomfortable worry suddenly flits into my mind. It's probably nothing, but... Finally, I push myself up, grabbing my shirt and tugging it on haphazardly. Creeping over to the door and pulling it open delicately, I peek out into the dark hallway. When I step outside, I glance around to see if Franz is anywhere nearby, but I don't glimpse his tall figure. Where could he have gone? As I rub my still hazy eyes and half stumble in the direction of the main hall, a creak suddenly echoes behind me. The creak of someone saving their game.
Franz, is that you? I wondered where you...
Before I can finish my sentence, everything before me suddenly turns to black. Ellipses. And I die. Dead. A cold sensation presses against my neck. Slowly, my eyes struggle halfway open. I feel as if I just got run over by a horse.
Come on, wake up. I don't want you to miss the fun.
Oh, Alistair. A strangely familiar voice coos in my ear. Wait, that can't be. Gritting my teeth, I fight through the sense of haziness to steal a sidelong glance at my captor. Yup.
Hello, Rivian. Or should I say, Rivian?
You! I had a feeling.
The devious brat's smug face gazes back at me in the dark, and he seems like an entirely different person. I realized earlier that he was the only person who could frame Valora, but he played the part of an innocent boy so expertly that I didn't think he could possibly be the culprit. I can't believe it. This kid is younger than me. I haven't murdered anybody yet, but he's already an agent of such a horrible group.
You know, I tried to get you out of the way at first, and you wouldn't have even gotten hurt. You just had to stay in those cells until your stupid aunt took the blame. But no, you and that idiot girl Celeste had to keep interfering, and my sad excuse for a partner couldn't even finish the job. Pathetic, really.
I stiffen as he traces the knife's razor-sharp edge gently along my throat, almost pressing hard enough to break my skin. My eyes dart around in the meantime, trying to find some possible avenue of escape. We're in some kind of underground chamber. What kind of place is this? Are we still by the castle?
Then you killed the ambassador. Why? You want to see the world plunged into war? What kind of ignorant child's game are you playing?
Chess? Alistair's lips twist into a displeased grimace, his eyes narrowing at me so coldly that it sends an uncomfortable chill down my spine.
Child's game? It's nothing like that. We're just playing the game that you pitiful nobles like so much, sucking up to your kings while the common folk suffer. Besides, that ambassador was one of our best former agents, you know. Until he turned rogue, that is. He should have known we'd catch up to him sooner or later.
The ambassador was a former agent of the Disciples? Impossible. They must be everywhere. As I grip my teeth together and meet Alistair's wickedly sharp gaze, the sound of scuffling suddenly echoes from nearby.
Ah, I think they're bringing your friend here. I wanted to have a bit of fun with both of you, just to make you suffer for trying to mess up our plans.
That was a deserved gasp? That gasp was deserved. Let me just... This is gonna be Dominic all over again. I can feel it. I'm gonna have to eat him. A sense of panic rushes through my heart as I watch the nearby doorway with wide eyes. Sure enough, two darkly clad men drag in a tall, struggling figure whose face takes barely a split second for me to recognize.
Franz! Let him go, you bastards!
At my outburst, Franz's eyes immediately shoot over to me, and he lets out a furious hiss between his teeth as he realizes I'm being held by Alistair.
I should have bashed your brains out when I had the chance back at the festival. You'll pay for this.
He glares at the boy with a look of absolute disgust, something I've never seen on his normally composed features before. But Alistair only offers a wide grin in response, his eyebrows raising provocatively.
Oh, really? Am I the one who deserves to have my brains bashed out? After all...
He strokes a hand through my hair gently, which makes Franz struggle with even more desperation against the men holding him.
I'm not the one who attempted high treason trying to murder my very own uncle.
I can't take all these grunts and gasps. My heart skips a beat. I stare at Franz, expecting him to snarl and deny Alistair's incredible accusation. But instead, he suddenly stops struggling. He bites his lower lip, opening his mouth as if to say something, before closing it again and lowering his head slightly.
The ambassador. I was poisoned by his words. I lost sight of myself.
His voice comes out in a way I've never heard it before. Hoarse, anguished, guilty. It's somehow painful to see him like this, like a tortured lion stripped of his pride, confidence tattered and broken.
You tried to kill the king of Privia? Your own uncle? Franz.
Is it that shocking, really? My astonished words caused Franz to close his eyes painfully. Sorry, getting into Riv's headspace. It's shocking. We're all shocked.
Oh, it was a few years ago and everyone kept it hush-hush. But some of us know the truth. The Peruvian ambassador was one of them. You should have been happy we killed him.
He was a monster and he deserved his death. The things he made me do. I almost poisoned my own king.
Alistair clicks his tongue chidingly, shaking his head at Franz with a scornful sigh.
Don't try to pretend you're different from us. If you'd gone through with the plan, you would have been the star agent of the Disciples. And you were so close, too.
My head spins and my vision feels slightly blurry. I'm so shocked. It makes sense now why everyone seems so wary and mistrustful of Franz. All that talk of the disciples of Ignatius and a former member was right before my eyes. He was almost a murderer, a treacherous murderer. What stopped him from it?
Rivian, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, I just wasn't brave enough.
I am legit unbothered by all of this. Is there a don't care option? His fingers curl into trembling fists, knuckles going white as he hangs his head bitterly. I can't muster up a reply. I'm too shocked. All my life, Father always told me that treason is the worst crime one can commit, like patricide, murdering the country's father, leaving the people unstable and in chaos. What other types of dark secrets does Franz have that I don't know about? Has he killed other people? Attempted to silence the rumors?
You're clever, Rivian.
No, he's not.
Clever enough that I might spare your life and take you into the fold of Ignatius.
He's not clever.
You'd be a wonderful agent.
You don't want
Once
him.
you realize we're working for the greater good.
You don't want him. Alistair trails his fingers down my neck, where I've almost forgotten the cold blade was still resting against my skin.
It could be the start of a new life for you. We could build a better society. One without the disgusting games of the court. No intrigue or politics.
His tempting murmur echoes in my ear. These games. I thought I could understand them, but if they only result in heartbreak and deceit, what do they matter at all? If I refuse to play them, am I a traitor? Or is it truly treachery if one does the world a favor by cutting down the horrible webs the court weaves?
All you have to do to redeem yourself is show your dedication to us by ridding the world of another useless fool.
By eating him! Alistair lifts me to my feet, gently pressing me forward to where Franz is slumped in between the two men holding him. It feels like I'm stuck in some sort of horrible nightmare as Franz raises his head to gaze up at me, pleading, desperate, looking into his emerald eyes. The cold touch of the blades lifts away from my neck, and instead Alistair takes my hand, placing it over his own atop the dagger and slowly moving it towards Franz's chest.
It just takes a little push, you know. One little push to end the life of a man who would have used you, betrayed you, maybe even killed you. Turned against you, like he turned against us.
It's really not that deep. Like, it's not. I'm the wrong person to be doing this because I'm like, eh. I stare down at Franz as Alistair's words breathe against my skin, swallowing the lump in my throat. It's so tempting to believe him, to spare my own life in exchange for the life of someone I've only known a few days. Someone who I've been so reluctant to believe, who seems too good to be true. Someone whose motives I questioned all along.
Rivian, forgive me. I couldn't protect you. But I will never betray you. Not now. Not ever.
He gazes into my eyes longingly, yearningly, with the sad bravery of a man stepping willfully onto the gallows. It feels like my heart is being torn in two. I can't. I don't know what to do. Those are both super vague. That's really vague. It's a good thing we saved. The save mattered. There's only one thing I know, and it's that I love him. I love him. I blink back, the tears suddenly welling in the corners of my eyes. Murderer. I'm no murderer. Unlike Franz.
So many times I've doubted you. Your motives, the reason why you were always staying by my side.
A wan smile curls over Franz's lips.
To be honest, I don't really know what to believe in anymore. But there is one thing I know for certain.
Alistair leans against my shoulder curiously, a dark smirk on his face.
Oh? And what's that?
I take a long, deep breath. I didn't come this far to stop now. And moreover...
I'll be damned if any stuttering, arrogant, evil brat is the one to end my legacy before it even starts.
I like that he starts with stuttering. Just Riv. Let's do it all together now. In Alistair's brief moment of surprise, I abruptly wrest hold of the dagger, driving it through one of his fingers with a sickening slice. He shrieks in pain, pushing me away and stumbling back. Blood drips from his hand down onto the floor, where the remnant of his finger rests in a crimson pool.
You bastard! Kill him!
Oh no, not today!
Before the two startled men can lunge towards me, Franz suddenly thrashes his way out of their grip. He punches the one on the left squarely in the jaw, sending him reeling and crashing into the floor. When the other tries to draw his sword, Franz knees him roughly in the stomach, making him wheeze in pain. Alistair, however, nimbly jumps back to a safe distance, reaching for an array of throwing knives at his belt.
Franz, watch out!
At my warning cry, Franz leaps out of the way just as two sharp knives whirl past his head. He yanks the sword from the staggering man and leaps towards Alistair with a growl, moving at lightning speed. But even with his bloodied hand, it's clear Alistair is no stranger to combat. He quickly dodges to the side as Franz charges, incredibly fast thanks to his small stature.
I'll spill your guts on the floor, you damn traitor.
He throws another barrage of knives in Franz's direction, letting out a furious cry. His bloodied fingers make most of the blades fly far off target, but one of the knives grazes the Franz hip, leaving a tear and a reddened gash in his clothing. Yet he barely flinches for a moment, instead diving for Alistair to try and wrestle him to the ground. They crash to the floor, and it's clear that Franz has the upper hand in strength by far. I know, the Franz. He manages to pin Alistair, glaring down at him with gritted teeth, getting ready to press the blade in his hand to the boy's throat. Just then, I hear a murderous cry behind me. The kidnapper! A sharp pain shoots through me. Blood trickles down from my side, and a burning heat deeply stings my flesh.
Rivian!
I'd sidestepped just enough so that the darkly clad man only sliced my side instead of impaling me. A horrible pain racks my body, but I managed to whirl around fast enough to catch him off guard, desperately slashing out with the dagger in my own hand. My haphazard strike cuts right into his face, and he staggers back, clutching his bloodied eyes with a howl.
You fools!
I glanced back over to where Franz and Alistair were, just in time to see the boy wriggling free during Franz's moment of distraction. Leaving his three groaning companions rolling on the floor, Alistair dashes straight for the exit, taking off before Franz can even try to grab at him. But Franz immediately hurries over to me, not even sparing another look in Alistair's direction.
Are you alright? You're hurt. I better manage that quickly.
What are you talking about? He's escaping! We have to capture him!
Look at Riv, being useful. At my frantic retort, Franz only offers a slight, sly smirk, tearing off a strip of cloth from his shirt and setting about patching up my side.
He's going to run into a nasty surprise. We're still on the castle grounds, and when I left you earlier, I was telling Linnaeus to put his men on patrols for the rest of the night.
Is that all you were doing with Linnaeus? Because the two of you have like a weird energy.
I had a feeling something bad was going to happen, and it seems I wasn't wrong.
He pauses, chewing on his bottom lip, gazing down at me with a complicated look of concern and relief.
You're always one step ahead of me, aren't you?
I murmur lowly, sinking against his chest and closing my eyes. A deep shiver racks my body, and I clutch onto the front of Franz's shirt, trying to hold back a wave of emotion.
I'm so sorry. I almost...
I love that my only thought right now is I'm gonna go back and kill him in like a few minutes. He strokes a warm hand gently through my hair, holding me tightly against his powerful form. I can hear his heart beating hard and fast, but I find it deeply comforting.
I'm the one who should be sorry. I should have explained things to you earlier. There's no excuse for what I did when I was younger.
Our eyes lock, and that look of guilt wells up in his own once more. But this time it's mingled with the boldness of someone ready to face his own demons.
I was once the ambassador's assistant, and he was the most powerful spy on the disciples' behalf. I did many awful things at his behest, but I hated my uncle so much that I thought I was serving a better cause by trying to crumble his reign. But the ambassador's own lust for power overcame him, He wanted my uncle out of the way so that he could seize control of the Empire. And he used me as a tool to get to him.
He turns his gaze away for a long moment, a far-off and troubled look in his eyes, his story giving the narrator enough time to eat some of her banana and have some coffee.
One night, during a gathering between kingdoms, much like this one, I stole into the meeting room, intending to poison the king's cup before he and the others arrived. No one suspected me of anything, as I was his nephew.
Excuse me. They should suspect you more. You're in the line. Bad security.
But as I hesitated, standing by the king's chair and wondering what to do, I heard a voice cautioning me to think again. That voice was your father.
My father?
At my shocked gasp, Franz slowly nods his head, a bitter smile on his lips.
He knew who I was, and who was controlling me. He told me the ambassador planned to use me as a scapegoat after I killed the king. That it would be blamed on me, and I would be betrayed by the man I was working for. The words he told me then have stayed with me since. A pawn is disposable, Franz. A king is not.
Yes.
Those are the rules, but the trick is this. Find a king who you would gladly die for. When your opponent sees you have no fear of defeat, that's the moment you've truly won the match, and the moment you can never turn back.
His eyes slowly return to me, a gentle warmth returning to them as he lifts his bloodied hands to cup my face, large thumbs brushing tenderly across my cheeks.
He let me escape that night, but the ambassador sullied my name after I abandoned him. Since then, I've tried to redeem my heavy heart by fighting the disciples of Ignatius whenever I can, though that guilt still plagues me every night and day. When I came here to protect you, I only intended to repay my debts to your father. But instead, I found a king amidst a sea of faceless pieces.
Really, who was it? Because it's not Riv.
And a king I would gladly die for.
Again, please tell us who. Is it Celeste? Because it certainly was not Riv. The distance between our lips slowly closes. As we share a painfully gentle kiss, I feel my eyes brim with tears. I want to apologize, to yell at him for keeping secrets, to embrace him with a passion like never before. But more than anything, I want to savor this moment where his very heart is bared to me, completely and utterly defenseless. I want to protect it. I want to hold on to him forever. I want to help him move beyond the shadow of his past, into a new light. Surely he'll always be haunted by the things he did and what could have happened, and that darkness will never fully leave his soul. But even if this is a game we'll never truly win, I refuse to give up without fighting my very hardest. And as Franz clutches me to his chest and buries his face against my neck, letting out a shuddering breath, I can only think of how thankful I am. Thankful that I kept believing in this crazy, perverted foreigner. This beautiful traitor. Franz. Beautiful traitor.
Oh, this one's amazing. Try it, Franz.
You're right. It absolutely melts on the tongue.
We should order a box to take home, don't you think? I can't get enough of this divine taste.
The sound of the bustling market crowd fills the air around us as we walk down the busy street. Franz's warm hand tightly clasps one of my own, while I use the other to hold a delicious cake we purchased from one of the stalls.
Oh, we should sample those next. Look how colourful they are.
The tall man by my side chuckles, bumping my hip playfully.
Pace yourself, kitten. Unless you intend to burn off all that sugar with me later.
I've gotten accustomed enough to Franz's teasing that I just offer him a dry smirk, shaking my head.
I much prefer making you do all the work. You have to put those muscles of yours to good use, after all.
We exchange bawdy grins as we turn the corner, heading into another row of shops and stalls. It's been almost a year since we met at the King's celebration. After Alistair was captured and sent to prison along with his conspirator, Linnaeus saw to it that Valora was set free, and her name completely cleared. I wouldn't say she's become overly friendly to me since then, but she's certainly warmed up a little, so I suppose I should be grateful for that. Franz and I recovered from our wounds easily enough, though I still bear a scar on my side. I'm a little proud of it. When the carriages arrived the next day, Franz saw fit to hop in mine and completely ignore his own, which I was secretly overjoyed about. As for my father's reaction when I first brought home Franz, it was priceless. He could barely believe his eyes, and they had a rather emotional reunion. That's not what "it was priceless" was leading me to believe. As emotional as father can possibly get, anyway. As for me, father said he didn't doubt for a moment that I'd make it back home safely. It seems he knew of the disciples' plot to unravel the party, but rather than putting them on alert by attending himself, he sent me instead, in the hopes that they'd let down their guard, for I am nothing but a pawn. It's a plot so disgustingly typical and cunning of father that my eyes rolled back into my head when he told me, but I can't deny that it was effective. Since that fateful celebration, the time has flown by, and it's hard to believe Franz and I live together as lovers now. We bought a small house not far from where my parents reside, though without any servants. They'd just get in the way, after all. As a result of what happened, as well as some thankful words from Linnaeus and Valora, I was offered an assistantship to our current ambassador. I work with him closely, while Franz provides guidance on the side as to how the crazy world of politics functions. Translation, Franz is really doing it, and I go and say what he tells me to.
Doesn't this place remind you of the festival at the King's Ball a little bit? It's very nostalgic.
Ah, it does. Are you fondly remembering when I first swept you off your feet?
Something like that, although I don't think I'd phrase it so flatteringly.
I smirk up at him as he lets out a playful huff, tussling my hair and giving my hand a squeeze.
Forever hard to get, kitten, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Ah, shall we go see the show they're putting on over there? It looks like some sort of dramatic play, and we both have a flair for the dramatic, no?
Mostly rib, though.
Yes, let's go. I just hope they don't sell out of those cakes by the time we come back.
Just buy the cakes now, then. I hold Franz's hand tightly while we hurry over towards the nearby stage, giddy from the excitement of so much happening around us. As I steal a glance up at Franz's tanned, happy features, I can't help but thank the gods for how lucky I am. To love and be loved is something I didn't know I was missing until I met this ridiculous scoundrel of a man. Best description. But now that I have him, I think I can safely say I don't plan on giving him up anytime soon. Okay, we did it. Yay. What did you think? Thoughts and feelings? I'm fighting the urge to go back and stab him. So, do we want to do other routes, or do we want to go to another game and then come back to this one later on? Tell me what you want, because I want to know. No stabbing. Other routes. Let's go stabbing. Let's kill him just for fun. I ship it like FedEx. You guys are great. Betty, I want to be the killer. I'll decide, because I have a million games. I have a problem. So, this didn't actually take as long as I thought it would, though. But I enjoyed it. But I feel like I need to do Sir Glass's route, and we probably should figure out why he hates Arden so much. But it was good. The only thing I would say is it didn't have as many choices as I was expecting. I thought that there would be more choices in it, but I still enjoyed it, even though Rip was not as competent as the game wanted me to think that he was. I'm just letting all the pretty CGs play because everybody who worked on this deserves to be seen, so I'm gonna let the credits play out because I'm that person who stays in the theater till all the credits are done because I'm like, everybody worked hard. Everybody worked hard. I'm looking forward to their next game a lot. It's another in their Red Embrace series, so if we unlock all of them, we can also do Saber, the wonderful Scottish broad accent. Well, Sailor Scout, it's not quite so secret, but Emma, I don't know if we'll ever find a competent protagonist. Thank you for making... Oh god, I'm talking to the screen. So, thank you so much for hanging out. We finished it. That's awesome. We'll be back and we'll be playing something else or another route. We shall see. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, whatever time it is. And I will see you again. Well, I can't. I'm going to go creepily eat my banana off screen. So... see you guys soon. Bye.